With criticism from both sides of the political aisle at the chaotic withdrawal, Blinken this week faced off with both the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the first Biden administration official to testify publicly before lawmakers since the withdrawal.
Upon taking office, President Biden immediately faced the choice between ending the war or escalating it. Had he not followed through on his predecessor's commitment, attacks on our forces and those of our allies would have resumed, and the Taliban's nationwide assault on Afghanistan's major cities would have commenced. That would have required sending substantially more U.S. forces into Afghanistan to defend ourselves and to prevent a Taliban takeover, taking casualties, and with at best the prospect of restoring a stalemate and remaining stuck in Afghanistan under fire indefinitely.
Even Democrats conceded that the withdrawal was clearly and fatally flawed and called for a full accounting of the U.S. response to the crisis, particularly in understanding the collapse of the Afghan government and military that had been shored up with billions of dollars in support and military hardware. Republicans, for their part, accused the Biden administration of ineptitude that had cost the United States international credibility, with one Republican senator describing it as the worst foreign policy catastrophe in a generation. But Blinken remained resolute that changing the timeline for withdrawal would not necessarily have changed the outcome.
There's no evidence that staying longer would have made the Afghan security forces or the Afghan government any more resilient or self-sustaining. If 20 years, hundreds of billions of dollars in support, equipment, training did not suffice, why would another year, another 5, another 10? Conversely, there is nothing that strategic competitors like China and Russia, or adversaries like Iran and North Korea, would have liked more than for the United States to re-up a 20-year war and remain bogged down in Afghanistan for another decade.
This as the United Nations, fresh off a donor conference in Geneva that raised over $1 billion to support humanitarian needs in Afghanistan, now warning that the wheat harvest in that country was in peril as the winter planting season beckoned.
Agriculture is indispensable in keeping the people of Afghanistan fed, keeping them alive, and keeping them self-reliant. Millions of rural Afghans depend on agriculture for food and income. Agriculture represents more than a quarter, just over 25% of the GDP of the country. It directly employs some 45% of the workforce of the country, and perhaps most importantly, provides livelihood benefits for fully 80% of the Afghan population. So, those numbers alone tell you just how indispensable agriculture is in the context of Afghanistan and why FAO is concentrating on this.
UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told the Geneva conference earlier this week that Afghans faced their most perilous hour, warning that poverty was spiraling amid acute economic insecurity, with millions facing starvation and famine. Sherwin Bryceby's SABC News, New York.